guys, super casual life update video coming at you. This past month, 2 months slash ever since January has just been so absolutely busy and crazy for us. We have just been having a lot of life things happening. I mentioned a few videos back that we were thinking about moving, and that whole decision and all of that has just taken up our 2019. But on top of just like adulting so hard, I have been sick for the past, I was sick for like 3 weeks straight, but I feel like I was sick off and on like a month before that. So I feel like I've just been kind of not feeling well and not feeling like myself for the past like 2 months. The first time that I really got sick, and now I'm kind of trying to put the pieces together, I got prescribed progesterone, I think is what it's called. And that medicine made me so sick. I took it for I was supposed to take it for 10 days. I took it for a couple of days, and then I woke up one night and I just was throwing up and I had diarrhea. But the most horrible part of it all was that I had stomach pains, like just my whole entire like upper abdomen, and it wrapped around my back. So it was just like a ring of fire and pain and cramping, and it was like a good 8 out of 10 pain. And I thought like, oh, you know, maybe I ate something, or I don't know. And then the next night it happened, and the next night it happened, and the next night it happened. During the day I would feel fine, but in the evening, just like all heck would break loose. I figured it was the medicine. I'm gonna try to prop my arm up. I figured it was the medicine. And so I only took it for 7 out of the 10 days. And I was just like, I cannot do this anymore. It was right around Christmas time. My sister was coming into town. I was sick for like 3 weeks straight, like no let up. Every single night I was waking up just again with like severe food poisoning, like throwing up, diarrhea on the toilet at the same time. Not only was I sick, but I was in pain and I wasn't sleeping. And then Harper's decided to wake up at 6:30 in the morning every morning. So it's like she would wake up so many mornings and I was still throwing up. And then I couldn't go back to bed because she's like awake for the day now. So now I just have to like push through the day with having like no sleep, tired, dehydrated, sick, like my goodness. So finally I went to the ER, which was a whole experience in itself. So I specifically went to a different emergency room than I did when I had my miscarriage with Blue, because I did not want to run into the same doctors. I did put a lot of blame on the doctors that night, like just in my mind, like I don't know that everything could have been prevented. I really don't think that it could have been prevented, but it would have been helpful to know what was going on, so that we can wrap our minds around it, because the way that I miscarried, like it was just a complete and utter shock. Like I was in the ambulance being transported to a different hospital, and all of a sudden I just felt a gush and my baby came out. Like I had no idea that I was miscarrying. I had no idea that I was in labor. The doctor told me I had appendicitis. I wish that I could have had Joe with me. Like I was alone in an ambulance. Like I much would have preferred to have known what was happening, and like Joe could have been there by my side and holding my hand, and like we could have delivered our son together. And so I think that I've had a lot of like bitterness and just anger in my heart with the whole thing. And so I told myself that like I never wanted to see those doctors again, and if I did, I was gonna like tell them off and punch them in the face. stuff like that. So we went to a different hospital so that I wouldn't have to punch anyone in the face. And we get in there and they like, I'm in a gown and I'm laying down and we're in the room and there's like nurses everywhere. And they have me hooked up. I think they already had an IV in me, I think. So I'm like hooked up, strapped down, don't have my clothes. And in comes walking in the same doctor that I had that night. And he, on top of him, like, not listening to me when I was telling him my symptoms, he was like, did not have bedside manner that night. He was rude. He kept cutting Joe off. Joe was just a concerned husband and a concerned father. Joe the whole time thought that I was having a miscarriage. I wasn't listening to him because I couldn't wrap my mind around that. So he's like telling the doctor, and he's like, I Googled, you know, this, and he's like, oh, well, and like he immediately cut off Joe, and he's like, well, who's the doctor here, me or Google? And like Joe's like, well, you know, she's been having these symptoms for like the past couple days going on, and so I'm just trying to figure out what was happening with her. Like, should we go in? Is this normal? Like, that's what we do. We go on Google these days to see if you need to go to the doctor or not. Like, and he was just like instantly offended by that. And my symptoms had started to change like right when I got to the ER that night. I was having really bad pains at my side, but then like pretty much right when I got to the ER, they had moved over to like my very lower abdomen and my lower back. But he was just focused on over here still, and I kept trying to tell him like, it has changed. He like wasn't listening. And so anywho, that was a side tangent. All of that to say, like, not only did he get the diagnosis wrong that night, but he was also just like a rude doctor that night. And so he comes walking in, and the second time around, and I'm like already strapped down, and he was like, the last time I saw you, it was probably the worst night of your life. And so then in that moment, I was like, yep, this is the same doctor. But then also in that moment, that was comforting to hear. Like, just to hear him acknowledge that that was the worst night of my life. Because he got the diagnosis wrong, but then I left in the ambulance and I never saw him. And when I left in the ambulance, we all still thought I had appendicitis. So I had wondered, you know, does he know what happened to me like 5 minutes after I got in the ambulance? What does he think about it? Does he regret anything? Does he not think about it at all? And so simply to hear him say, the last time I saw you was probably the worst night of your life, and like for him to have a very compassionate, like soft voice, that like instantly changed my heart, because I was just like, okay, he gets it. And so then I instantly started crying, and he like came and sat down next to me, and he's like, I'm sorry. And he was just like, that was just such a tragic thing that happened, and I'm so sorry that you lost your son. And he was just like really sweet and soft-spoken and apologetic. And so I just like stopped crying, took a deep breath, and I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna like yell at him. Like, I just instantly was able to have a change of heart that I'm really, really grateful for. So then he's like, well, I'm gonna order an ultrasound so that I can like take a look at your organs. So then I'm having the ultrasound, and the same ultrasound tech as that night came in, and I was just like, this is not happening to me right now. But she, because I wasn't as angry at her, but later when I showed that ultrasound to my OBGYN, and she looked at the ultrasound and she was like, his head was in your birth canal. That's why they couldn't find his head. And so I just was always kind of like bitter at the fact that not only did she not see it, she has a boss that reviews it, and then that guy takes it to the ER doctor. I think that's how things work. So I'm like, not only did she not question where his head was, But then the person that she took it to actually read the ultrasound didn't see it. And then the ER doctor didn't see it. So it went by 3 different people and nobody questioned why you couldn't see his head and why he was perfectly still. And so I just had, not entirely towards her, but I definitely just had bitterness in my heart that nobody was able to read the ultrasound correctly. And so here I am seeing her, but then she did the same thing. She's like, I heard about it the next day and it really hit me, and it really stuck with me, and my heart just absolutely broke for you, and I just couldn't believe that that happened. And I went from having like these bitter feelings to instantly, I guess I just felt validated, because there was a part of me before that just wanted to stand on the rooftop and have these doctors hear me yell out, I didn't have appendicitis, I was in labor. It just instantly melted a lot of anger that I had in my heart towards that whole situation that I didn't even know that I had until it melted away. It's like you're carrying something super heavy and your muscles have just gotten used to carrying it. But then when somebody takes that burden away from you and you're able to feel the relief of no longer holding it, is when you're able to really acknowledge how heavy it was in the first place. That's how that felt, and it was just instantaneous. As soon as I heard them apologize to me and tell me that they've thought about me and that it really affected them and that they know that it wasn't appendicitis and they know now that I was in labor, like just hearing them say that just like instantly took that burden away from me, and I was instantly able to feel lighter, and I was able to feel forgiveness, and I was able to feel joy that I hadn't felt since that night. Just having a piece of your heart constantly feeling bitterness and anger on an everyday basis, and it's just constantly there and you don't even know that you're feeling it anymore. And it's just such a gift to be able to have that anger taken out of your heart and to be able to go back to being somewhat of a normal heart now. Then the doctor afterwards like came and gave me my diagnosis, which I'll talk about in a minute. And again, he was like, do you have any questions, you know, about that night or about, you know, today, like anything at all? Like he was like basically telling me like, if you want to talk about things right now, I'll talk to you. And I was just like, no, it's just crazy how we thought it was appendicitis, but you know, it turns out I was in labor that whole time. He's like, yeah, you know, as ER doctors, like we get so many different things happening, and you know, your pain was in your side and you were having all of the symptoms, and you know, we're doctors, but we're still human, and we don't always know exactly 100% what's happening. And just to hear him be humble like that, like, was huge, because the night that we saw him, he was like all offended that Joe looked at Google. And I could have said so much more to him, but number one, I was out of it. I don't know if they were giving me something in my IV or what, but like I was like real loopy when I was there. I was tired, I was sick, I was in pain. I had already felt the healing in my heart at that point, so like there's no need to like hash it out. He was like, well, I'm really sorry that happened. He's like, I'm sorry that you're in here, but I'm kind of glad that I got to see you again because I've thought a lot about you. So I don't know if that was like a complete God thing. I think it was, because like we were legit at a different hospital, and so for me to run into 2 of the same people from that night is just crazy. And I had no idea that I was still holding on to such bitterness and anger. Like, just like I said, like I didn't know how heavy it was until somebody took it from me, and then I realized, because I had just gotten used to holding it with me every second of every day. And so it just strengthens my testimony in Heavenly Father so much that he knew that I was carrying that around. I didn't even know, but he knew, And he knew that that needed to be fixed. And he knew that I needed to run into these people for me to have that kind of healing. Like, I don't think that kind of healing would have been able to come unless exactly what happened happened. And so the fact that Heavenly Father would orchestrate all of that because he loves me and he cares about me, it's just, I'm just so grateful. And I know that Blue was probably a part of it too. Something that I never shared was the EMT from that night had contacted me and had sent me flowers. And I was so grateful for that, because the week after having Blue, I kept replaying that emergency ride over and over. Like, I was like obsessed with it. I would be like in the grocery store and I would start thinking about it, and I would just be like standing in the grocery store like replaying it over and over. Like, if somebody was looking at me, they'd be like, what is that chick doing? Because I would like zone out and just play like every second of that ambulance ride. And sometimes I couldn't remember like small tiny details, and it like really made me anxious. And I kept telling myself, like, I wish that I could talk to her. I wish that I could talk to her. I have this question, I have this question. Like, I just need to see her again. Like, it's like I was calling out to her. My heart was calling out to her. And then one day, boom, there she is with flowers. And it was such an answer to a prayer. And I got to see her and talk to her and ask her questions. And she told me the same thing. She was like, after we, you know, dropped you off at the hospital, she's like, I got back in the car and just bawled my eyes out. And she's like, I cried for 2 days. And just hearing that from her, like just hearing, again, it's just that validation that what happened to me was a huge, hard tragedy. And so in the end, I ran into her and I got the healing that I needed from her. And then I ran into the doctor, and then I ran into the ultrasound tech. Like, everybody that I needed to talk to, Heavenly Father orchestrated it to where I was able to talk to them and I was able to receive healing from it. It's just so amazing. So anywho, I've been talking for a million years. The diagnosis from the ER doctor, is that everything was fine, but there's something in your blood. What is it called, honey? The blood thing? What was in my blood? Antihistamines? The only thing that was elevated was my antihistamines level, I think, or something like that. And so he said that that indicates that I'm having an allergic reaction. My eye is itchy. And so he was saying that his guess is that I'm eating something that my body is allergic to, and so then it kind of treats it like food poisoning, because when you have food poisoning, it's like your body knows that something that you just ate isn't good, and so it does everything it can to like get every last piece of that thing like out of your system. So he was saying my body knows that I'm allergic to something that I'm eating, and so it kind of treats it like food poisoning. It just does everything that it can to get that out of my system by having severe throwing up and severe diarrhea. So he referred me to a specialist that I still need to go to. He gave me antacids that I take every day, and that has made it to where I haven't been throwing up. Sometimes I try to not take them, but then I start feeling sick, like I'm gonna throw up. And so as long as I take them, I'm not throwing up, but if I don't take them, I'm throwing up. So I need to figure that out. We've kind of put fertility on hold slightly, because I feel like all of this started when I started that fertility medication to get myself to start the period. And so I'm worried. The next step for us is to start like Clomid and stuff like that. So I'm gonna be putting medication into my body and I feel like I just need to figure out what the heck is going on with my stomach before I start taking these fertility drugs. That is the update on me. So all of that has been going on, and then also just like major life decisions that have been taking up so much of our time. So with all of that, I have just been MIA. But I have been filming, so I do have some videos coming out, and we'll be able to kind of make some final decisions here in the next couple weeks, and then I'll be able to share everything with you guys. Anywho, this has been an absolutely insanely long video, so I will go ahead and end it here. Thanks for once again having patience with me, and I will hopefully see you guys in the next one coming up real soon. Bye.